It was a late summer night when the city's neon pulse flickered gently against the velvet sky. The broadcasting tower loomed tall, its red warning lights blinking steadily for distant aircraft, and the steady thrum of electricity coursed through its veins like a heartbeat. Around this steel giant, a colony of bats emerged from their hidden roosts, gliding silently into the warm air to begin their nocturnal hunt. But one bat broke away from the group. Instead of swooping gracefully in pursuit of insects along the river, it darted back toward the tower, its wings cutting frantic, jagged arcs through the air. It flew not in the smooth rhythm of its kind, but in a restless frenzy, spiraling sharply and diving toward the structure's metal frame only to recoil abruptly. Its high-pitched cries pierced the night, startlingly loud in the stillness, echoing against the girders like urgent warnings. Below, a few late-night passers-by paused to watch. To them, it seemed like nothing more than an erratic bat disturbed by the glare of floodlights or confused by electromagnetic fields. They shook their heads and walked on, unaware that the creature's strange agitation was not random at all. Something unseen was stirring within the tower, something hidden, humming with quiet danger, that only the bat seemed able to sense. That night, the stage was set. A small, winged creature had noticed what humans could not, and its restless flight would become the first sign of a threat that could plunge the entire city into sudden darkness. The following evening, the city carried on as usual. Streetcars rattled over their rails, neon signs buzzed faintly above diners, and windows glowed warmly across apartment towers. Life pulsed on, oblivious to the invisible strain humming deep within the electrical grid. High above, the broadcasting tower once again glowed like a sentinel. Its red lights blinked their steady warning rhythm. But something was subtly wrong. For just a fraction of a second, one of the signal lamps dimmed, barely noticeable unless you were watching intently. That momentary flicker was followed by a low hum, a vibration too faint for human ears, but enough to disturb the bat colony roosting nearby. The same restless bat from the night before returned to circle the tower. It flew tighter loops this time, wings cutting dangerously close to the lattice of metal beams. Its sharp cries echoed across the rooftops, carrying an urgency that made stray dogs tilt their heads and sent pigeons shifting uneasily from their perches. The bat dove and rose repeatedly, as though trying to draw unseen lines of danger in the air. Inside the control station at the tower's base, an overworked technician sat slouched before a glowing monitor, eyes heavy with fatigue. A faint red warning light blinked at the edge of his console, dismissed as a glitch caused by humidity. He rubbed his temples and pushed back his chair, unaware that the faulty wires above him were slowly heating, their insulation fraying with every surge. The bat's cries grew louder. Its flight grew sharper. A creature that hunted by sound was hearing a deadly song no one else could detect, the strained crackle of electricity building toward failure. But for now, the city still slumbered peacefully under its canopy of lights, unaware that its safety was in the wings of a single small guardian. As dusk deepened, the city prepared for its nightly rhythm, apartment lights blinking on, the hum of traffic softening into steady streams, radios and televisions crackling to life with evening broadcasts. The broadcasting tower, tall and skeletal against the darkening sky, pulsed with its red beacons, a silent reassurance of order. But to the bat, nothing was reassuring. Its sharp ears caught something no human could, the unnatural hiss of electrical arcs seeping through the tower's steel bones. The creature darted frantically, its wings slicing the air as it dove at invisible threads of danger. To anyone glancing up, it looked like erratic hunting. To the bat, it was survival and warning. The technician, still at his console, rubbed his eyes again. He thought he saw the monitor flicker. A second later, a row of fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and dimmed before stabilizing. His chest tightened with unease, though he forced himself to dismiss it. The city's grid often strained under heavy load. Minor fluctuations weren't unusual. Still, he jotted a note on his clipboard. Check tower circuits. Unusual draw. Across town, subtle ripples appeared, A commuter train briefly lost interior lighting, passengers murmuring nervously as the bulbs flickered before stabilizing. In an old neighborhood, a diner's neon sign sputtered twice, drawing confused glances from its patrons. These tiny tremors were precursors, fragile warnings, threading through the city's electrical veins. Outside, the bats' shrill cries grew relentless, echoing off the steel and glass of nearby buildings. Pedestrians on the sidewalks glanced upward, puzzled by the creature's behavior. Weird, one muttered, tugging his coat tighter. It's acting like something's wrong. The bat continued its ceaseless circles, a solitary sentinel shrieking against the silence, as if trying to force the humans below to listen before the wires above sang their last note. The bat's agitation was not without cause. Deep within the tower's steel frame, beneath a maze of thick cables, a dangerous flaw simmered. A section of wiring, frayed from years of unnoticed strain and weather exposure, sparked faintly in the shadows. Each gust of evening wind made the metal joints groan, pressing the wires closer, teasing them toward a catastrophic short. Inside the small operations cabin at the tower's base, the technician leaned closer to his instruments. His monitors showed anomalies, tiny surges rippling through the circuits, barely perceptible but building in frequency. He frowned, running a hand over his jaw. That's not just load balancing, he muttered. On impulse, he reached for his headset and radioed the city's grid center, asking if they had noticed irregularities. At the power station miles away, engineers indeed had. Graphs on their screens showed unusual fluctuations that weren't tied to expected demand. Could be a failing line, one said, though the anomalies pointed closer to the broadcasting tower. If the weak point collapsed, the cascading outage could black out whole sectors of the city within minutes. Meanwhile, the bat swooped lower, its leathery wings whipping past the technician's window. Its screeches pierced the cabin, forcing the man to glance outside. For a moment, his scientific mind dismissed it as random animal noise. But then the lights inside flickered again, and a faint smell reached him, a sharp, acrid tang of overheated insulation. His pulse quickened. He grabbed his flashlight and climbed the narrow metal staircase into the tower itself. Each step vibrated faintly, as though the structure carried a hidden tremor. The beam of his flashlight caught something, a wisp of smoke curling out of a junction box. His stomach clenched. This wasn't a minor fluctuation, it was the prelude to disaster. Above him, the bat circled faster, shrieking louder, as if demanding that he hurry before the wires sang their lethal note and plunged the city into darkness. The technician's breath grew shallow as he stared at the wisp of smoke curling from the junction box. One spark, one arc between the stressed wires and the cascading failure could ignite, not only inside the tower but across the fragile web of the city's electrical grid. Every passing second felt like borrowed time. He yanked open the metal box, coughing as the acrid odor hit him full force. Inside, the insulation had begun to blister and peel. Threads of copper glowed faintly like embers hidden in the dark. The hum of electricity was uneven, jittering like an angry pulse. He knew he had minutes, perhaps seconds, before the overload would surge through. Grabbing his toolkit, he fumbled for insulated gloves and a voltage tester. Sweat trickled down his temples as he snapped the power feed switch, but the lever jammed halfway down. "Damn it!" he hissed, muscles straining as he forced it. Finally, with a sharp crack, the switch gave way, silencing part of the tower's electrical heart. But not all. A second circuit roared in protest, lights along the interior stairwell flickering like a storm-tossed beacon. His radio crackled. The control center's voice was tense. "We're seeing spikes across the network. Can you confirm status?" He pressed the transmitter close, trying to steady his voice. Partial shutdown. Junction compromised. Attempting manual isolation. Above him, the bat swooped frantically, slamming against the tower's beams, its wings drumming like a warning bell. To the technician, the creature seemed possessed of a desperate urgency, as though it understood the stakes. The sound steeled his resolve. He stripped a length of wire, quickly fashioning a bypass to reroute part of the current and relieve the failing junction. His hands trembled, not just from the heat radiating off the cables, but from the knowledge that one slip could mean electrocution, or worse, triggering the blackout he was trying to prevent. When he finally tightened the last screw and flipped the auxiliary breaker, the entire tower seemed to exhale. The flickering lights steadied. The hum softened into a steady thrum. The monitors in the cabin below stabilized, their wild oscillations smoothing into normalcy. Exhausted, he leaned against the railing, chest heaving. But he knew this was only a temporary patch. The damaged wires still needed full replacement before they sparked anew. He picked up his radio. Crisis contained, for now. But we need a full repair team on site immediately. Above, the bat circled once more, then soared off into the dark. Its erratic path finally calmed, as though satisfied that the danger had been seen, and, for the moment, subdued. The technician had barely steadied his breath when the first wail of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights flickered across the riverbank, cutting through the fog that clung to the industrial district. Within minutes, a convoy of utility trucks rolled up to the base of the tower, their headlights stabbing upward like search beams. Teams of engineers spilled out, hauling heavy coils of insulated cable, portable generators, and arc-resistant suits. Their boots struck the gravel in a synchronized rhythm, every step urgent, every movement sharpened by the knowledge that the city's power grid was still hanging by a thread. The lead engineer, a grizzled veteran with decades of field experience, jogged up to the lone technician. "Status report, now." His voice carried the clipped edge of command, but his eyes betrayed relief at finding the man alive. The technician quickly explained what he had found: the scorched insulation, the blistering wires, the improvised bypass that had temporarily stabilized the tower's circuits. The engineer's jaw tightened as he listened. If that overload had cascaded, he muttered, half the city would have gone dark. Hospitals, transit lines, traffic systems, you name it. No time was wasted. Crews divided into specialized units. One group set up floodlights around the base, another began splicing replacement cables, while a third scaled the tower to access higher junctions. The tower, which only an hour before had seemed on the brink of collapse, now pulsed with human determination, a battlefield where skill and precision would decide the outcome. As sparks flew from severed cables being carefully extracted, the bat returned, swooping low over the worksite. Its path, no longer erratic, seemed almost watchful, as though ensuring the humans were following through on the warning it had given. One young apprentice, unnerved by the creature's persistence, muttered, "It's like it knew." The older engineer gave a grunt but said nothing. Meanwhile, at the city's control center, operators monitored the grid anxiously. Green lines blinked across monitors, stabilized but fragile, as emergency reroutes carried the load around the failing sector. A single misstep on the ground could still plunge neighborhoods into chaos. Back at the tower, the technician who had first discovered the fault lent his steady hands to the crew. Hours slipped away in a blur of cutting, stripping, sealing, and securing. Finally, with dawn beginning to stain the horizon pale gold, the lead engineer gave a nod. "All right, bring it online." A final breaker snapped into place. The hum of the tower deepened into a strong, even thrum. Lights across the panels blinked green. In the control center miles away, the tense operators let out audible sighs of relief as system graphs flattened into stability. The blackout had been averted. Exhausted but triumphant, the crew gathered at the base of the tower. The lead engineer clapped the technician on the shoulder. "Your quick thinking bought us the time we needed. Without that, this city would have woken up to chaos." Overhead, the bat made one last sweeping circle before vanishing into the fading night, as though its work, too, was complete. When the sun finally rose over the city, it illuminated not just streets and buildings, but also the invisible web of wires and substations that had been saved from collapse during the long night. By the time commuters filled the roads, the threat of a citywide blackout was already fading into what would soon sound like an incredible story. Community reactions news traveled quickly. By mid-morning, radio stations and online news outlets reported that a massive electrical failure had nearly plunged the city into chaos, but had been prevented by a team of technicians working tirelessly through the night. Yet one detail of the account, captured everyone's imagination, the strange role played by a single bat. Witnesses among the crew mentioned how the animal's frantic, erratic flight patterns had drawn attention to the precise point of danger. That detail spread like wildfire, retold at breakfast tables, coffee shops, and office water coolers. Children whispered about the hero bat, while some adults laughed nervously at the absurdity. Still, deep down, many couldn't shake the thought that nature itself had sounded an alarm when technology nearly failed. Media coverage. By afternoon, local newspapers ran bold headlines. City saved from blackout, the bat that warned the tower. Television crews interviewed the lead engineer, who carefully emphasized the skill and dedication of the human teams, but admitted with a wry smile, "Without that distraction, we might not have found the fault in time." Social media exploded with artwork, memes, and even short animations, depicting the bat as a masked guardian, swooping down over the city like a comic book hero. Hashtags such as hashtag GuardianBat and hashtag CitySavior trended for days, bridging the gap between humor and awe. Reflections among the crew. For the technicians who had faced the danger firsthand, the night left a deeper impression. They remembered the smell of burning insulation, the constant hum of unstable wires, and the razor-thin line between success and catastrophe. The younger apprentices began jokingly calling the incident the bat shift, but privately, they admitted to feeling humbled. If not for one tiny creature's disruptive behavior, they might not have reacted in time. Legacy of the event. In the weeks that followed, the power company quietly implemented stricter inspection protocols on aging towers. The near disaster was a wake-up call, not just for engineers, but for an entire city that depended on invisible systems it rarely thought about. And in a curious twist, one old tower on the riverbank became a minor local landmark. People began leaving small carvings of bats near its base, or painting silhouettes on nearby walls, as though paying homage. Whether the bat's flight was coincidence or instinct, no one could say. But for those who had lived through the tense hours of that night, the lesson was clear. Vigilance could come from the most unlikely places. And so, a city that might have woken in darkness instead awoke to a strange new symbol of resilience. A bat that had seen what humans nearly missed.